This question is kind of frustrating because we're stuck reading a paragraph with very similar words that have different meanings. So let's try our best here to just narrow our focus so that way we can really understand what we're being asked and what the differences are that are kind of happening in these lines. So the question itself is pretty clear. We have to establish the argument that follows. So we need to know what that argument is in order to be able to establish it. So if we go to 15, it introduces the argument like this. Critics of employer-provided professional development argue that employees blank, blank, blank. I don't know what that is going to say yet. So here's the argument that follows. So this is what they're telling us to kind of look at. If employees find themselves falling behind in the workplace, these critics contend, then it is the duty of the employees to identify and even pay for appropriate resources to show them how and why they are falling behind and what they should do about it. So let's just pause there for 1 second. These are people who are critical of the employer doing the paying, and their argument is that the employee should do the paying. So that's why this is tricky, because employer and employee, if you're just reading fast, look like the same word. But we're talking about two different groups of people. That's the whole crux of the argument here, is who pays, right? So let's continue just to reinforce that. This argument ignores research pointing to high employee turnover and training of new staff as significant costs plaguing employers in many fields. Forward-thinking employers recognize the importance of investing in the employees they have rather than hiring new staff when the skills of current workers get old and worn out. So it's about employers paying versus employees paying. And the argument that we care about wants the employees to pay. So employees pay. We might even write it down just so we have a really easy way to focus on that idea. So is choice A, what's in there already that I skipped over, is that talking about the employees paying? The employees might consider a popular career path. Well, okay, it doesn't talk about them paying for anything. Should lean heavily on their employers. No, that's the opposite. It's saying the employees shouldn't rely on their employers. They should be independent and pay for things themselves. So this is the opposite. This is a trick here because it's very similar to what the passage is arguing, but it's not what the argument we're supposed to focus on is arguing. Really just, everything's all twisted. C, they must be in charge of their own careers. So the employees must be in charge. So that sounds right, because then if they're in charge, then they're the ones paying. Let's just look at D. They will be ready for changes in the job market. Well, no, that's not about them paying for anything. C isn't directly say the word paying, but in charge tells me they're taking charge. They're taking responsibility, and that is what the passage is trying to say. So yeah, I mean, honestly, once we know what we're looking for, this question becomes much, much easier because there's really only one choice that has anything to do with the argument that they're talking about. The challenge is that the argument that they want us to focus on is the exact opposite of the argument in the passage, and it's hard to distinguish because the words that they're using are pretty much identical. The spelling is off by one letter and it changes the meaning significantly. The SAT loves to do stuff like this, but if we just narrow our focus and try to really, get down to the core of what they're saying, we should be able to notice these little things and get these right answers and not get tricked by things. So just follow instructions, read it carefully, and you should be able to get these points.